So how many people do you think are not right-handed in the world?
42.
Not a club in a way that it's, whatever, but there's people who are choosing to do that, and I'm a part of this group now. That makes me happy. I know other people who have that, and I have now that in relation to them. That made me happy.
You're like a Jeep owner now.
Give you a 5-second countdown? That's crazy. Thank you for joining us here, Salt of the Streets Preshow. This is fantastic. This is episode 60. Thank you again for joining us. We are happy to have everybody here. My name is Donovan.
I'm Colin.
And this is it. Again, thank you for joining us.
It's 3.
Yeah, you are watching us here on our Facebook, live at Facebook at Salt of the Streets. You can watch all these videos later on our YouTube at Salt of the Streets. We have our own personal social medias you can see behind us, but they are also, I am Salt of the Street on Twitter and at alpaca_Donovan on Instagram, and he is at Big Bird Offie on both of those things. You can find all of this information on our website at saltofthestreets.com. I want to thank everyone who has been listening this week, because this has been an enormous fucking week for Salt of the Streets. An enormous week for Salt of the Streets. We found a new platform for our podcast, and it has taken the fuck off. So I want to thank everybody who's been listening to the pre-shows, to the regular episodes. It's been fucking fantastic. So keep sharing it. Keep, if you're just listening on Podcoin or on Apple Podcasts or whatever, go on to our Facebook. Like it, share it, show other people, because you obviously enjoy it. You like it, so show other people so they can enjoy it. Tell them about fucking Podcoin so that they can learn about earning free shit. We'll talk about that later, but Podcoin's fantastic. So do that. That's not even a plug. That's just, I love this. It's done amazing things for our podcast already. It's going to help us flourish. This is amazing. I'm so jazzed. 60 weeks in, and I'm like, this it. We got this. I've been doing this for over a year, but this is finally, we're out here. Like this, we're starting to do something. So we're really happy. Today, yes, go ahead.
I would say definitely not to throw shade at anybody out there trying to start a podcast and stuff, but after listening to some of the new ones on Podcoin and these people coming online, starting podcasts for the first time, you're going, hey man, in a lot of aspects, we're bringing you a semi-quality product here.
Yes, yeah. And I'm sure that there's a lot of people who listen to our podcast and like, these guys are fucking idiots and it sounds like shit. But Colin does a fantastic job compared to, I listened to an inordinate amount of podcasts. I found out by watching all of my listening on Podcoin that I listened to a stupid amount of podcasts. So our audio quality is not the best that I have heard because we don't record in a studio, but it's pretty fucking good.
It's better than the Skype podcast.
Yes.
Man, those are hard to get through sometimes.
And after a year of doing this, I feel like we have gotten much better about the structure of our show, about the way that we've done it. We got things going here. I feel pretty confident about that. So
dude, I went back. I think we might have talked about this a couple of weeks ago, but I went back recently once we got our shit on Spotify.
Yes.
And I went back and listened to the first 5 minutes of episode number 1.
Was it bad?
Oh, it's bad.
Oh.
There's zero structure. There's no opening. There's no nothing anymore. It's just like, all right, here we are. Yep. I'm over here. That was back when we were sharing the one mic, and it was just,
I forgot about that.
Oh man.
Maybe I should do that.
I got about 5 minutes in. I was like, yeah, I don't ever need to hear this ever again.
I saw one dude who went back and listened to like the first 4 or 5 episodes, and I was like, I don't know how you did it because I have not listened to them. I know that they weren't good. So that's, I don't know how you were doing it. But anyway, before we continue, I need you to tell us what you had to eat today before the show.
Up until about 5 minutes before you walked into the studio today, I had my other sandwich here, but I made 2 breakfast sandwiches with, I don't know, turkey or chicken,
whatever
lunch
it
meat
is
type thing on there. Yeah. And then a couple eggs, some cheese, some of that delicious Dave's Killer bread.
There you go.
But I made 2 of them because I had like huge aspirations. Then I got done with the first one. I said, there's no way.
A1 and that was it.
Yeah.
Word. Well, that makes sense. That seems legitimate. So let me put this to you.
Please.
Also, I know that we've been doing this for over a year, but I'm just now realizing like I should have a way that I transition in the pre-show, you know? Like I should have a thing that I say, Colin Cowherd is, let me shift gears to this, right? Like that's what he says every time when he's gonna go to something else, at least in the beginning of the show. So I'm like, I need to establish that. So I want to just ask everyone to bear with me for the next few weeks while I use some really awkward phrases trying to figure out what feels the best for me.
Hey man, as long as you don't open up to, you ever watch Archer?
Yes.
So, you know how I just restarted watching Archer because I'm like 2 seasons behind and they got the new one coming out soon.
Yeah.
Well, there was this thing on that show called phrasing for a long time.
Yes.
And so I'm in the earlier seasons, and so phrasing is heavily a thing. And so if you walk into phrasing at any point during this podcast, I'm going to try to be all over it.
So I was listening to Dax Shepard's podcast earlier this week, and I want to halfway, I know I've talked about this before, so I want to halfway recant the shit that I talked the last time I talked about it, because I listened to one episode that had Pete Wentz on it from Fall Out Boy, which I've been listening, that's another thing. So,
trying to remember the name. It's Armchair something,
Armchair
right?
Expert.
Armchair
right?
Expert.
And so I was listening to it, and it was essentially him and Pete Wentz talking about like how hard it was to be famous. And I was like, fuck you guys. Like, I don't care about how difficult it is that, you know, no one cares about like what you have to say. They just want to take pictures with you. Fuck you. Right. So I've listened to a bunch of other ones, and it still sometimes is like that, but there's a lot more quality to it now that it's going on. So Will Ferrell was on there the other day, and I guess he's like obsessed with, I don't know, has like a weird thing about Sweden. And so
of course he does. Why not?
So his kids have fucking crazy names. One of them is named Magnus. Another one is named Matthias Sven.
Ooh.
And then the other one is Axel Skoglund. And he said Skoglund like a small wood. Like a small forest. Yeah.
A Skoglund.
Yep, exactly. Axel Skoglund.
I have a Swedish friend named Axel, by the way. He's a very cool dude. I hung out with him when I was in Europe after high school.
And I always thought that was a weird name, but that's like pretty common in Europe. Like it's not that weird, but here I think that it's weird, right?
There's a podcast out there called the Axe Files or the Axel Files, and I think it's
David Axelrod.
Yeah, Axelrod. Oh,
yes.
Axelrod.
Yes.
Not quite as awesome as first name, but
no. So I heard something else this week. I was listening to something, one of these crazy murder podcasts that I listen to.
One of the
right?
50,000 podcasts you listen to a day.
Yes. So how many people do you think are not right-handed in the world?
42.
Like, no, percentage-wise.
Probably that are not left-handed?
Not right-handed.
Not right-handed.
So that means either
or
left
ambidextrous.
Or, yes.
Oof. Yeah. Maybe 10%?
So, right. So it's 8 to 10%, right?
Okay.
And so...
Damn, that was pretty good.
So in pedophiles, right? Non-right-handedness... Guess how much it is?
75%.
Like 30%.
Motherfuckers.
But is that not super weird that there's like such a... Isn't that weird? I didn't know that. And it's not...
There's a reason the Catholic Church thinks that left-handed people are satanic.
And it's not just that. It's not just that. But that's like one thing that they found out when they started doing research like on pedophilia, when they realized that it was an actual thing, you know, and not just a weird like phenomenon, you know, so that it's actually like a thing that's in people who have whatever, some type of, I don't want to say brain damage because that's not necessarily the case, but something that's wired, and I don't know what the correct term, you know, but something that's wired incorrectly, being not right-handed becomes way more dominant because it has to do with the side of your brain that operates more heavily in your body. I thought that was so interesting. I thought that was so fucking totally weird. Right?
I was kind of purposefully thinking through a joke that I definitely should not have said. And I'm really glad I did not.
I'm glad you didn't. So, but isn't that wild? I thought that was
crazy.
Really
it's like, does that mean that being right-handed is quote unquote normal? It's like default out of the factory.
It's certainly more normal. Yeah, I mean, it's you know. Jesus Christ, 90 to 92% of people are right-handed.
Don't forget that thing hits like a beast.
That's nice. I know I forgot. That's really nice.
So my question to you is Ben Shapiro left-handed?
I do not know.
I've only
watched his show one time.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's not very interesting to watch.
It's really close to his face. And
he's staring. He doesn't hardly stare at the camera. He looks at his computer most of the time, which I know I probably do the same exact thing.
I do it a lot too. I realized when I watched our show this week that I know I should look
I'm really
at the
bad at that.
more. Yeah. Yeah.
But I wonder if that's like, if there's other causalities or correlations you can make between like groups of, say, genius level IQ people and being left-handed, or if it's just something about being left-handed means you're not part of like the status quo.
Yeah, and I'm not sure. I believe I was listening to Sword and Scale, so that's just a true crime podcast. So that's what they focused on, is more of like, you know, the psychological aspect of it, not like the intellectual aspect of it. So they didn't talk about that. Caroline asked about being ambidextrous. So this is non-right-handedness. So that includes being left-handed or ambidextrous. That's what that is for.
Dude, I'm like really into this for some reason now. I'm going to go down a dark, deep rabbit hole and find out.
Super interesting, right? So
because I'm strongly right-handed. So if being a genius is totally out of the cards for me, I just need to find that out now so I could just quit dreaming, you know?
Well, let me know what you find out, because I'm interested to hear.
Maybe I shouldn't look, because I'm not going to get answers I feel like I want.
So something else happened to me this week that I want to ask you about, right? So
please.
I've been talking about it for several weeks. I received my concealed pistol license in the mail this week, right? So that's something I've been talking about on the show for the past couple of weeks, that I've been doing that I started the process. First of all, I want to tell you it's not as easy to go and buy a gun as people fucking say it is, because it took me almost a goddamn month, you know? And I know I got my CPL and shit, but even if you don't go in with your concealed pistol license, then they have to fax in a background check, and it can take up to 30 days anyway. So you absolutely cannot walk in day of without some type of background check already having been done, because even though I had just received my concealed pistol license that day in the mail, they still did a background check. But they looked it up online and then got it back in like 2 minutes, right?
Because that like doubles, because you have to get a background check and stuff to get your concealed carry. Correct?
Yes. To get my concealed carry, I went and I filled out all this whole form about where I lived. I had to put on like the tattoos and shit that I have, any scars that I have that are notable, like anything like that I had to put down on this form, so that if something is to happen, they know what they're looking for.
Is it a big stack? Like, is it?
No, it was just one form, but it's a police form, so there's a lot of boxes in it, you know? So I filled out, and the whole thing is just about you. It's just like your address and then your whole physical appearance and everything. And then they take it to the back and they fingerprint you and they do all that shit. And so what you're waiting for in that time is the background check through everything. They have to do, a mental health check. They have to make sure, you know, that you've never been locked up, that anything like that. So they check for all that. And then, like I said, even though we got it in the mail that day, we went in to pick up the pistols and they still did another background check. We filled out a whole nother form. They took down the serial number, the caliber of the gun, everything, right? All this information. So I did think that it was interesting, that they're maybe not interesting, but no, that's probably the right word, right? That there isn't already some type of class that you have to take to get the concealed pistol license. That I thought was interesting, because even though I have some exposure to guns, and not my whole life, not a huge amount, you know, and I still was able to go and get one and then buy a pistol and go home with it, you know? So I have enough knowledge that I feel comfortable, you know what I'm saying, with that I'm not uncomfortable with it. But it does seem interesting that somebody who's never held a gun before, who's never fired a gun before, can, as of right now, until next month, you know, go and get a concealed pistol license, wait 3 weeks, go and get a pistol, buy ammo, and have it at their house, and then go to the range, go to wherever, you know. They may or may not be safe. That you would hope that they will be, but that's not necessarily the case, right? Yeah. So I thought that was very interesting. So I don't necessarily disagree with, as of next month, there having to be some form of class you take that's just a basic firearm safety course that you take before you get your concealed pistol license, then you go and get the gun. Because if you don't have any knowledge, I can see why that would be necessary. If you're Jake, you know, who seems like he's been around guns his whole entire life, you know, is obviously very well versed, has all, you know, several guns and stuff, like that's his own deal. You know, I feel comfortable that if he was to go and have to renew his concealed pistol license, whatever, I feel comfortable with him doing that and buying a pistol and going home, and everything's going to be just fine, you know? So I posted a picture of my concealed pistol license with some of the information taken off, because I was happy to be taking advantage of my Second Amendment right to be a part of now like this. Not a club in a way that it's, whatever, but there's people who are choosing to do that, and I'm a part of this group now. That makes me happy. I know other people who have that, and I have now that in relation to them. That made me happy.
You're like a Jeep owner now.
And it's people that, and I tag those people in the picture, like one of our family friend, John, my cousin Riley. There are people who I knew would be jazzed to hear that I had done that.
Oh yeah, dude, it's like a thing.
People, yeah, there's a whole bunch of people. There were some people who said, oh, you should like maybe keep that to yourself. Maybe you shouldn't be talking about that, which I understand, but I felt Jake put it in the best way when he said, I don't think that you're living the type of lifestyle where your enemies don't need to know that you're packing. Like, I don't think that that's really the lifestyle that you're leading. And I agree with that, that I'm not actively concerned about that, but I totally understand the concern, right?
Yeah. So I could understand it.
Yes. So,
especially because it usually comes out of a place of, in the true sense of the word, ignorance of what we're dealing with here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not a bad thing for somebody to own a gun. No. It really isn't. And you should assume that the person that owns that gun has the legal right to own that gun and is themselves trained enough to carry it in a responsible way.
So, Morgan is in the comments here and said that she has to take a class to learn how to serve food and alcohol. So she can't believe that you don't have to take a class to have a gun, right? I absolutely understand that. I think that that's like a legitimate point. But at that point, when you're talking about practical implications, you're getting into like rights. You know what I'm saying? And talking about like guns,
it's not a right to serve food to people. That's,
right. As dumb as that might sound, that's when you get down to it, that's the fact of the matter, that it's not a right to serve food and alcohol to people, but it's a right to own a firearm as we exist in America today. I mean,
just to touch real quick on the fact that there's a class requirement coming up soon. Like, I'm curious to see if my hunter safety class that I have and have currently up to date certified in and all that stuff, that's essentially the same exact thing, except for all of your shooting and all your, your safety precautions and all that. Other than just the gun itself, you're also concentrating on like safe hunting practices and certain local laws and stuff. So I'm wondering if those two can kind of carry over to be one and the same. I wonder.
And I know that when we went, because the day that we got our concealed pistol license in the mail, we went, we went and we bought pistols, right? So Jordan and I both bought one. And when we were there, they have flyers there. There are classes available for I-1639 certification for you, like a class specifically that will fit for the new law that is about to go into effect next month. Like, there's one that's like, if you take this is legitimate, then you can go and you can buy the shit that you want, So they have class specifically there. Like I said, I don't have to shitty as it sounds, I don't need to worry about that because of when I got my CPL. But they're advertising for it already if you're going to do this. I think that I very, very well may take one so that it's there. I don't know if I'm going to have to in the future, or anything like that. So and I don't think that there's any harm in it at all, to learn.
More training is never a bad thing.
Never a bad thing at all, right? So
I kind of think of it similarly to your driver's license, as asinine as it might seem to go take the pathetic excuse for a driving exam that we have, just because you've been driving around, say, on your parents' property or something like that, and your parents are teaching you to drive, and you're the most proficient driver in the world, you still have to go in and get the license.
Right.
You could be the most certified, gun owner around, but not have taken that class and checked that box and got your little certification. But if that's the direction we feel like we want to go, I don't see the harm in that.
Right.
It's not preventing you from getting a gun. It's just now saying, like, hey, you need to get your driver's license before you can start driving.
You need to make sure there's at least this level of safety that goes along with this, right? So I heard from someone else in the comments more than it was my father-in-law, right? Who was a military serviceman for 29 years, right? So he's several tours. He has obviously, a lot of experience with firearms in a very practical use, right? So, so his personal opinion on it was that, he doesn't know that people should have firearms in their homes because he's seen a lot of things happen with accidents and with suicides. And I think that's totally legitimate because there is an inordinate amount of veterans that commit suicide every day because of PTSD, so I think that's a totally legitimate point of view. One of the things that he said was there's 3 ways to die from, I don't want to mischaracterize it, so I'm paraphrasing slightly, but there's 3 ways to die from a firearm, and it's homicide, suicide, and an accident, right? Which I think is That's fair, right?
Yeah.
But he said, so there's a 33% chance that you're going to use it correctly. I don't think that that's the case. I don't think that that's a fair statistic at all, because that's only taking it. That is assuming that all of those people have no training at all, don't know how to use it safely, don't know anything, because that there's just as large of a chance that I'm to commit suicide as I am to commit homicide as I am to accidentally shoot somebody. And that's not the case. You know what I'm saying?
No, those numbers don't carry over whatsoever.
There is not an equal chance. I'm not 33% as likely to do any of those. That's not the case.
No.
Right? Especially when you take into account, you look at the actual numbers, there are different sections of the community that are more likely to commit suicides, that are more likely to commit homicide. Middle-aged white males are the most likely to commit homicide or to commit suicide with a firearm, right? And it's like young black males in the urban city that are most likely to commit homicide with a firearm, right? I don't want to,
which doesn't even like that.
It doesn't.
By taking that statistic, you realize it's probably the gun
numbers.
In that aspect may not be the root of the problem,
right? So I understand the concern, but I don't think that it's a fair characterization of most people's appreciation for a weapon, right? Because I know that the first time that I shot a gun, I was in Florida with my Uncle Jeff, and he took me down to the firing range, and he was like, this is what we're going to do. He sat down, and the first thing he said, okay, so you need to know that you should always assume that a firearm is loaded. Even if it's a revolver and the chamber is open and you can see that there's no rounds in it, you should assume that there is a round in there. You should assume that it is loaded. So you should never point the gun at anything you don't want to destroy or kill, because that is what this is. This firearm is capable of killing someone at any point in time. You know what I'm saying? And it has to be phrased and put to a new user in that type of way. You know, I don't feel like saying just this is really dangerous is even like harsh enough. You need to be very clear. This is capable of killing somebody at any point in time if you are not careful. That's like the gravity of the situation needs to be understood to be appreciated. You know what Definitely. I'm saying? And if it's not being put in that way to anybody, then they're not going to appreciate it in that way, right? So he also talked about how much more likely children are to die when there's a firearm in their home. Mm-hmm. And I understand the statistic, but it does not take into account how many of those parents told the kid about the gun, who've trained them with the gun, who've explained it to them. None of that. It doesn't explain any of those things.
That's the problem with people, man, is people are not, they're not a good study subject.
Right.
Because every single person is completely, totally different. So you have an endless amount of variables when taking a rough epidemiology type study like that.
And not that you would ever do this, right? But if we both have children in our home, if 10 years from now you have a kid and I have my kid, right? And I'm keeping my pistols, all of my guns in my home in I-69 regulated safety, right? That they all have individual gun locks. They're all locked away so that no one can get access to them. And you have a loaded gun sitting around in your house. Your child is, in fact, far more likely to be killed by that gun than mine is.
Yeah, far more.
That statistic does not take that into account.
Nope.
So to say that my child is 11 times as however much more likely to die because there's a firearm in my home, I feel is not offensive, but again, a gross mischaracterization of the reality of the general firearm, not even the general of my existence as a firearm owner.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I understand that just by having it in the house, yes, my son is more likely to die from a firearm because it's there. The possibility is there.
Yes.
But if they are all locked up, all with gun locks, through the chambers, through everything, right? And all of the keys are with me and with my wife, I don't understand how he's going to get access to be able to use those guns. You know what I'm saying?
If you're a good, responsible gun owner, they can't. Unless they club you to death, steal your keys, and then boom.
Right.
Which is a whole nother set of problems.
We have another person in the comments, Zach, that's talking about, they're not talking about the statistics of not having to use it at all, right? So, which I totally agree, I have that written down here, that the CDC statistic on lives saved from defensive use of a firearm starts minimum 500,000, maximum 3.5, right? minimum $500,000, because those are the people that report that I have a firearm and it saved my life. Maximum 3.5, because it doesn't take into account the people who just have to brandish their firearm and never have to use it and don't report it. There's a lot of people who, if they just have to take it out and don't have to use it, the person who's trying to attack them moves on and they move on, they're not going to call the cops. They're going to be like, I'm happy that I have this. That's why I have my CPL. That's why I have my concealed carry permit. That's why I have this. I'm happy that I had this today.
Yep.
Right? I also don't think it takes into account, because my father-in-law didn't ask us why we got it, right? So just to put it out there, whether or not I've talked on the podcast before, I know that we're running a little bit long, but I feel like this is good, right? We got our concealed carry permits because when my wife was 8 months pregnant, I was super duper sick, and we were supposed to go to a birthday party, right, for my brother-in-law. And I may have said brother-in-law, but it's my father-in-law that had quoted these statistics and that he was uncomfortable, right? So I just wanted, because I don't know this, but we were going to a birthday party for my brother-in-law, and I was super sick, so I had to stay home, and Jordan went by herself, right? On her way home, she stopped in the Land Rover to get gas, and someone tried to get into her car when she was there getting gas. She's by herself at the gas station, super pregnant, not going to be able to defend herself, right? She comes home crying, all kinds of mess. The first thing she says, this happened to me, I want a gun. I want a firearm. I want to get my concealed carry permit. I want a gun. I said, absolutely. That makes sense to me, because it's not that I never considered that. It was not an active reality in my life that was possible, right? She said, all I can think about is, what if Dax was in the car? What if my son is in the car and someone is trying to steal my car with my son in it? You know what I'm saying?
Shit happens, man.
What are we supposed to do? So I was talking to Kyle at work, because I told him about it. He was asking me about it. He asked me the same. He didn't ask me the same thing, but he asked me, because, like I said, I've not had this discussion with my father-in-law. He asked me to talk about it on the show today, so that's why I'm explaining it now. So you can see this. You can understand why we have it. You can understand that I'm not even carrying it with me because I haven't taken it to the range yet. I want to be safe with it. I don't want to carry it with me until I am extremely comfortable with it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I don't have it with me, even though I have my concealed carry permit. I'm 100% legal. I could have my pistol in my car loaded with 15 rounds of fucking hollow point ammunition, ready to use at any time.
You could be strapped right now.
And I have chosen not to, because I want to make sure that I'm safe. I want to make sure that I'm responsible. Do you know what I'm saying?
Hell yeah.
So to hear that even insinuated is so frustrating to me. It's so fucking frustrating, right? And so when Kyle asked me about it, and not Kyle, but to hear that we're maybe not being safe, it's so frustrating, right? Mm-hmm. And then, to be clear, he texted us afterwards and apologized for saying that, this is just my personal opinion. I know that you guys are smart, blah, 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 right? But I'm telling you the way that it was taken, right? And I'm not trying to call you on the internet, but I'm talking about it because you asked me to talk about it, right? So when Kyle asked me about it, I told him, I said, and I got it, right? Not only because Jordan was doing it, why shouldn't I, right? So because if Jordan and I are together, she's far less likely to carry her gun because we are together, right? Mm-hmm. And if I'm in a situation, part of Jordan's thing was, I'm not scary. I'm not intimidating. That's how she feels about herself. I think that's the difference. She's a small woman that a large man could take and do whatever the fuck he wanted. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So I told Kyle, I said, and I feel like if I'm with Jordan and I'm with my baby and someone is going to try and do something, I'm large enough that it's because they feel confident enough that they can do it. Right. And I said, I would rather not.
Or scarier, desperate enough.
Right. I would rather not have to take the chance that I'm able to physically overpower this person. I would rather not have to worry about it. I would rather be able to draw my concealed carry weapon and say, I don't want to do this. Oh, and I don't think you want to do this. I think that if you walk away, then we can leave and everything is fine.
Everything is cool, bro.
I would rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. And I'm sure everyone's like, oh, that's a fucking talking point. That's fucking whatever, But
there's a reason it's a talking point, because it's pretty straightforward.
And that's where I'm at with it. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I am in a place where, even though the statistics, the numbers for mass shootings have changed, that people are so concerned they're happening all the time. There was a public worker like 2 weeks ago in West Virginia that walked into his office after he got fired and fucking shot a bunch of people. You know what I'm saying? So that shit happens. It's possible. And if I'm at work, I'm not going to have it in the back of my pants when I'm at work, but it'll be in my truck, you know? And I would rather be in a situation where if something like that happens, I'm able to try and do something instead of having to sit in the corner and hope that I don't fucking die that day. You know what I'm saying? I would rather be able to even try and do something, I'd rather than have to hope that I'm not going to die.
Exactly. And I think I'm just I'm stepping back now and I'm remembering over a year ago when we were first starting to have these discussions
Yeah.
over the fucking cutting table and looking at where you're at now today. And it is a very interesting evolution. And it is all, I mean, it's an evolution towards like a more, if you want to throw the stereotypical label on it, like a more pro Second Amendment type of person, right?
Yeah.
But you have had legitimate reasons for your thought and how you've changed to this line of thinking. You have heavily burdened yourself with the huge burden of responsibility that comes with being a gun ownership, and you obviously do not take it lightly. And
not at all.
I mean, you've now lived through, via your wife, you've lived through an experience where you've been through a situation now where it would have been better for you to have one than not.
Yes.
And now you're thinking about, well, what if this happens? What if that happens? There's endless possibilities where all of a sudden now I am powerless to protect myself because the lack of the tools necessary to protect myself.
Right. And we only know, there's the number like 357 million or something like that. That's how many guns are in America. But that's registered guns by owners. We don't know how many people are carrying guns on the streets that are. There was the guy who fucking stole 98 guns from the store on Gorse that are all already gone.
There's still 70 plus on the streets
just
right now.
Out somewhere. Yep. If I run into one of those people, I would rather be in a better situation and be equal with that dude than be at a severe disadvantage.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's one thing if you're like a trained martial artist who knows that you have the training necessary and the experience necessary to take an opponent, a hostile opponent down if you needed to.
Yeah.
But without that kind of training, a gun is a completely reasonable option.
And I told Jordan, when we were still waiting for the CPOs in the mail, I said, I think I might look into like a tactical style training course just to take, like a 1 day, whatever. That's just more of like in a real life situation. This is what, what you would do. I said, and that seems reasonable to me because I have a concealed carry permit. Like that's what I'm doing. That's why I have it, is for in an everyday situation for me to be more prepared like that,
I'll call my boy Keanu Reeves and hook you up with his guy.
I saw that video. I saw that John Wick video. I
did.
Dude,
he's so, but those no bullshit aside, those tactical training courses, yes, they have some real technical training that you're going to come out of the other end a better gun owner. You're going to, a better handler of your weapon and all that. But they also have the side effect of being incredibly fun.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of combat training courses and oh God, they are fun.
Yeah.
They teach you a whole new skill set that you didn't even know that you might actually need one day, because it's one thing to stand there on a range, draw down on a target and, take your time and aim and all this. It's another to be like, okay, you have to sprint 10 yards ahead, get behind this, take a prone position, take 2 shots from this way, take 2 shots from your offhand. It's awesome. Right. And it is so much fun. And so it's in a controlled, safe environment. So there's yeah. It's
so
fun.
I think it's something that I'm going to look into, just as like I said, it's not something I'm actively concerned about. But I think that it's the same thing with just the standard safety course that I would have to take if I waited another 2 months. You know, I think that there's nothing wrong with taking that course, with getting more knowledge. You know what I'm saying? When I got the pistol, I sat down and read the fucking book that came with it.
That's healthy.
What I'm saying? Because this is a brand new thing to me. I know I've never owned this before. I have a revolver, I've had that, but I didn't have this pistol, and it's brand new, came with the booklet. I would like to know about it. I'd like to know how it works. I'd like to know all this shit, if it jams. Is there a special way that I should deal with this as opposed to another one,
There is. And there's multiple types of jams, and you need to know how to clear them individually, and it's different for every gun.
Right. So, and I understand that is not going to be the case for everybody who purchases a firearm. Yeah. But all I can do is speak for myself and speak for my wife, because I know that we purchased them together. I know how she feels. I know how I feel about it. That's what I did when I purchased the pistol. I know that they both came with trigger locks. They both came with gun locks. You know what I'm saying? That's we also, I have a little cabinet in my dresser that I'm gonna put a lock on, because it's a better, like, just a good place for them to be kept at, so I'm gonna get a nice fucking lock on there. We have a lock box itself that has the revolver, and that's up there, that we had kept before, that I didn't carry around with me because it was just for my house, it's my grandpa's fucking old service revolver, so
I'm gonna get you one of these days, once we become big and famous and we have all this money to throw around. I'm gonna buy you a nice, like, what do you call it? Those like touchpad ones that you like, beep, beep, yeah, with the fingers. Ooh, those things are sweet.
I've seen that before.
I'm like, man, I want one of those. But yeah, man, no, good on you, man. I'm super proud of you.
Yeah,
I think it's awesome. I feel hella lazy right now because I don't. But
you're good, right, bro. You're good. And I just
I'm worried about buying a giant ass long rifle that's gonna kill a fucking elk,
and that's more where you're at,
Yeah.
And that's more my back burner concern. But my first one was the concealed carry, was the pistols for us to both. We found ones that we felt comfortable with. That I've realized after purchasing them that, like, the gun community is so much more particular than I knew before. People's opinions about what you should and shouldn't carry are, like, so strong that when I bought this particular gun, I looked it up and people were like, you should never fucking carry that. Like, that's not right. I would never do that. It's not, it's unnecessary. It's too big. It's too whatever, and then they're like, oh, well, I also, I'm fucking 5'9" and like 160 pounds. I'm like, well, there's a little bit of a difference in the body type here. You know what I'm saying? So, but that's a deal for it. But I didn't realize, I knew that they were particular, but I didn't realize exactly how particular and how, like, hard-headed some people are in that community.
Oh yeah, some people are, man.
But
just like any community of anything, man.
Yes.
There's large swaths of very different opinions within that group. It's one of the reasons why it drives me so nuts when people just say, the gun owner, there's two sides to the debate. It's like there's the gun owner side, there's the Second Amendment side, and then there's the gun control side. It's like it's not true. That's not real.
You can speak to that. Like you said, you knew me, you've known me for several years now. When we first met, there's not that I would never have owned a firearm, but I would never have generally considered getting my concealed carry from anything like that,
No.
And I wouldn't have been having this conversation with you the same way 3 years ago, So it's not
so funny.
It's not about black and white like that, you know. And thank you, Morgan. She said, so this is why I appreciate you as a gun owner, because you go the extra mile to educate yourself. So I appreciate that. I do. Because that's really what I'm getting at here.
Oh, yeah.
Is that it wasn't a decision that we made on a whim. It wasn't something that we were like, oh, well, we can do it, so let's just do it, because I'm 24. I could have gone and got it 3 years ago, and I didn't, you know?
It's not a decision that should be taken lightly, because like we talked about earlier, the burden of responsibility is not a light burden to bear.
Right.
For the lifetime that you own and possess that firearm, you're responsible for its outcome.
Yeah.
Regardless of what happens to it. If it gets stolen, you need to report that it was stolen, because that is still your gun now somewhere else in the world.
And if it is used in a crime, you can be held liable, especially with this new law that just came into effect. But we talked about that many, many weeks ago.
Many moons.
So I think that's about good on the pre-show today. That's enough.
That was a healthy pre-show.
It's enough for my rant. I hope that was good for everybody. I want to thank everyone again for joining us. I appreciate everyone for listening. Appreciate for your activity here in the comments. I love hearing from you guys. Keep doing it. Keep sending us topics. Tell us what you think. Keep sharing it. Thank you, everybody, again, on Podcoin, on Apple Podcasts, and everybody for listening. You guys have been helping us so much this week. It's been so sick. Again, our personal social medias, I am at Salt of the Street on Twitter and alpaca_Donovan, alpaca_Donovan on Instagram, and he is at Big Bird Offie on both of those things. You can find us at our Facebook at Salt of the Streets, our YouTube at Salt of the Streets. We have a SoundCloud at Salt of the Streets. You can find it anywhere that you get a podcast. All of our information is on our website at saltofthestreets.com. Thank you again. This was an excellent pre-show.
It was great.
Thank you, everybody. Look out for the new episode on Monday. It's going to be fantastic. Peace out, guys.